профессора Ричарда Вайе рассказать о ней.
Thank you. Wow. To do a talk after Django Edwards. Well, it's a shift. It's very different. So I'll be firstly talking about educational programs for clowns in Europe. And first of all, I'd like to thank very much for this invitation to be able to talk here, and particularly after Django Edwards and after these fantastic speeches this morning by practitioners. Me, as a mere theoretician of clowning, I'd like to thank the organizers, particularly Slava Rubin. Thank you very much for inviting me to talk about a Swiss Academy of Clowning. And if I could have the first picture, please. Dimitra has given his name to a Swiss theatre academy, which is located in Ticino, in the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, down very near Ascona, Locarno. There he is, and it's the continuity of what we said before. It's a smile, and it's Dimitri's signature smile. He's actually clown Dimitri has actually got a Russian grandfather who was called Morozov, but his mother never met her father, and Dimitri might look a bit Russian for you Russians. At any rate, he was called Dimitri. He was his first name. Now Dimitri is his last name, and all his children have got the surname Dimitri. So he's really fulfilled what in the 18th century the Arlecchino would do. You would be called Sacchi as Arlecchino. At the end of your life, the names actually interchangeable. So he's the founder of the school. Dimitri, clown, when he was 8, he decided to become a clown. He saw Andreff, the Swiss clown in Circus was mentioned this morning, Swiss National Circus at the time. Now it's Austrian and Swiss, the brothers have separated. And at 8, he decided to become a clown. When he was about 20, 22, 23 in Switzerland, it was very difficult to become a clown. So he said, I should go to Moscow, to the circus school in Moscow, but coming from a highly capitalistic society and country such as Switzerland, it was clear that they wouldn't take him. He decided to do a kind of piecemeal training for himself, to learn all the things he wanted to learn, which he considered to be parts of being a clown. So he went to Paris, this is the 60s, and he first met Etienne Decroux, pure mime pure, and from Decroux, he realized very quickly that Decroux's line is not what he wants to do, because he plays instruments, he likes to laugh a lot. Decroux was not at all about laughter, and in fact it was a very, very serious affair, mime pure. So he went to Marcel Marceau, and Marcel Marceau was a pupil of Decroux, but he interpreted his mime in a different way, commercialized it. So the problem was between the master and the teacher, that if you were a pupil with Marcel Marceau, you weren't allowed to mention Decroux. You weren't allowed to tell Decroux that you go to Marcel Marceau, because Decroux was totally anti-commercialization of mime, and Marcel Marceau, with his signature thing of the masks, the mask maker, which was actually not his invention, it was Ali Jodorowsky who invented that after a dinner. So Dimitri spent about a few months training with Marceau in Paris, and then he joined the company for about a year. After that, he realized that he wants to go more in the direction of musical clown, influenced by Grock, Swiss national clown, big name. And he went back to where he'd come from, to Ascona. You might know Ascona from the film festival in the south of Switzerland. Ascona has now developed into a major tourist spot. In those days it was still what it originally was, a little farming village, fisherman's village down on Lago Maggiore. And Dimitri founded his own clown theatre. Then they were chucked out of that space and he had to find another space. He went to a little village called Verchamp, which is in Centovalli, in the mountains going up towards Italy from Lago Maggiore. It's the fourth village up the mountain, and that's where his school is located. It was called Škola, Teatro Dimitrij. It started off as Teatro Dimitrij in 1971. He founded a little theatre. I think Django Edwards turned up there at some point. I heard from Dimitri. And after 1971, a lot of students came up to Dimitri and said, you know, the kind of thing you're doing in this theatre, that's what I would like to do. And they said, where can you learn that? Acrobatics, mime, music. Is there a school where you can learn all these things, put them together? And this went on for a number of years. More and more people asked him, and he decided, when a friend of his came from Czech Republic, at the time they were doing underground theatre. The person was Rичард Вайе, who was a mask maker and actor and underground theatre. They were active in this theatre, Engl, I don't know what it was called in English. And he came and suggested to Dimitri, let's found a school about masks, about physical theatre. And Dimitri said, and about clown indeed. And Dimitri said, okay, it's a good idea. Then all these people who want to do this kind of work in Switzerland, they can have find an education. But I don't want to teach. A clown is not a teacher. I can't teach, and I don't want to mix the two things. I'm not a pedagogue. But if you do the teaching, organize it, I'm fine, we can found a school. So Dimitri, Rичард Вайе, and his wife, Dimitri's wife, Gunda, they founded the school in 1975. That's a time, as we've heard today from David Shiner and also just now Django Edwards, which was going post-hippie, post-68, into a new direction of physical theatre with the festivals opening in France. So a lot of things were happening. In Switzerland, not much was happening. It was really all evolving around Dimitri. So the school was founded in 75. And it was not a school for clowns. It was a school founded by a clown to teach things that are clown related, and specifically pantomime, physical theatre. What I'm doing now is I'm a teacher there on the theoretical level. I'm not a clown. I studied acting, traditional acting in Zurich, and then I did philosophy in England, in Oxford. So the idea is to do clowning and clown-related physical work. So there is a course. It's the bachelor we have is organized in 3 years. In every year, you do some form of clowning. The first year is just a weekly course spread over a couple of weeks. You do slapstick. And it's about training body, it's about reaction, it's about action and reaction. And the second year is devoted more to something you could call, well, they call it clown entrée. And it's based on the book of Tristan Rémy, who wrote about different clown entrées in the 20th century. You know the figure from Fellini's film, I Clown. He turns up there and he gets involved. Dimitri interviews him there. So the second year is devoted to the red-white energy of clown and the Monsieur Loyal who turns up. And the students work for about a month, and every week they have 3 or 4 sessions, like 4 afternoons a week. And the idea is to do these entrees. I'd like to show you, to give you an impression of the kind of work we do. And the teacher is Emmanuel Puy. I'm actually not at all involved practically in this, but Emmanuel and I have chosen a couple of examples to give you an impression of what we do in the clown entree. If we could maybe have the first example of the video. And is there anybody? The first, number 1. And this is really, it's all in Italian, we teach in Italian. So in this little show, the word is actually quite important. Saltimbocca, and it's like breaking a metaphor. We need to start from the beginning of this something. Saltimbocca is breaking down the metaphor and dumping in his mouth, which is the dish at Saltimbocca Romana. So he's playing the dish. The next example, little short clip, please, is a different type of work, which gives you an idea of the physical emphasis on the physical expression, expression corporelle, and it's number 2 of the videos. And it's to interpret the red-white energies of clown. I've just given these randomly, these titles. Because he had just laboured on something which didn't work, and it was what you don't get here, the sound is very poor. The whole spraying thing is really the soundtrack. The sprays, the repetition of the sound of the spraying and preparing the body for the day. Now, just another short one, please. 2 more short ones for these clown entrée ideas. And the next is called il miele, honey. And it's just a sort of basic situation of red, white clown, one clown wanting something from the other, something sweet. It's in Italian, but the situation is clear as commedia dell'arte, I think. But the tone we need, please. The sound. Just 1 second.
insegnerò io il modo di mangiare e bere senza lavorare. Sai cosa sono le api?
Cosa sono le robe?
No, le api. Ti piace il miele?
Adoro! Miele! Wow! Miele! Wow! Miele tutto il giorno! Wow! Davvero fare un po'!
Sì, lo facciamo, ma dopo, ok? E tu, quindi basta. Dicevamo, sì, sono proprio le api che fanno il miele e loro sì che hanno trovato il modo di mangiare e bere senza fare niente. È molto semplice, adesso ti faccio vedere. Ecco, sì, ma proveremo a imitarle. Tu sarai la regina delle api. Sarai regina, proprio così. Una regina.
Wow!
Queen of the bees.
Questo è il trono della regina, Wow!
Throne of the Queen of the
Da
bees.
questo momento sei diventata regina delle api. Sei nel trono, seduta sul tuo trono, E poi bene attenzione, io sono una piccola ape che vola di fiore in fiore per estrarre polline portando alla regina, trasformato in miele. E dunque, siccome tu sei la regina, quando io verrò da te, dopo aver fatto 3 piccole riverenze, tu dovrai solo dirmi: oh, api, mia piccola api, dammi il miele. E io te lo do, guarda. Ma certo, ma sì. Adesso sta attenta, Comincio.
So this is all second year student work after about 3 weeks of working with Emmanuel. And one more example of this line of work is very international. Django was before telling us that of these 40 clowns we saw, it's completely international. It's the same for the Dimitri school. It's located in Switzerland, but of my 8 master students we have every year, they're all of them from different cultures. So the teaching is actually really comparing different ideas about clowning, different ideas about the theatre. I don't have to do much teaching. It's a matter of listening to what the students offer and to understand where the differences are. So for me, it was a completely different line of trying to engage in what teaching means for students who want to enter the stage, because what we're learning now is they come with very, very different ideas. If you're coming from Finland, completely different relationship of how much mimic you need in relationship to the body language or the verbal language. So one of the things is also to engage an audience. And one little clip, please, number 4 of the list, is this complicity idea. How do you engage with the audience? How do you connect? And a lot of that, of course, is clown work, as I understand it. This is number 4 on the list. So this is playing with the audience. Slightly close to.
Excuse me, sir, I'm terribly sorry, but you see, I have to call my mother. She's really ill and I need 50 cents. Could you help me out with the call? No, No. You know you can't ask them for money. Yeah, I agree. Well, you see, my mother. They don't care about your mother! No, look at them! They don't care about my mother. If you needed money, all you needed to do was come and ask me. Really? Yes. Can I ask you for money? But of course you can. I'm going to give me money. No! You just said I can ask you for money. Well, yes, you can't. So will you give me money? No. Gabby, what? You can win some. How would you like to win? Let's say 50 francs. 50 francs! 50 francs? I'm going to St. Moritz and drink champagne with people like you for 50 francs. That would be a great deal. Oh my goodness, what I could do for 50 francs. What? The 50 francs? Oh, yeah, I would love to win 50 francs. Great. Wait then, don't do it. Right. And what are we doing now? You said I should agree.
After this second year and the third year, they do a clowneria, what they call clowneria, and that is organized in a 3-week course, 4 afternoons a week, and it works in 3 different phases. The first phase is just warming up into engaging into the possibilities you've got as clown. And I'm going to quote the teacher, what he gave me to say here. This is Emmanuel Pouilly, who runs this course at the Dimitri School. Obviously, we're not all natural-born clowns, but all of us can try to immerse ourselves into their universe. In order to rediscover the pleasure of playing, we do some infantile games, manipulation of objects. We discover the ridiculous sound of languages we invent. We try to find the essence of all our errors and mistakes. This course builds on our defects, our ingenuity, and our stupidity. And in these 3 weeks, the second phase is to copy a famous clown act, a reprise, and completely imitate absolutely every detail, the music, the mask, the costume, and perform it in front of an audience. And the third phase of this third year part of clowneria is developing your own little number. And that can be with others, it can be with a group, or it can be individually. And I'd like to show you here, so it's playing without red nose, and it's playing without white mask connotations. So it's integrating this sense of clowneria. 2 very short clips, please, to illustrate that, and those will be the only ones, the last ones I'm going to show you today. One I'm calling Masca da Bagno. the students live in this little mountain village for 3 years together. There's 12, starting with 12 students. Usually they end up as 10. And so it's a very intense time of their lives they spend together. This little village in Switzerland has got about 500 inhabitants, and most of them are somehow now related to Dimitri's school, and a lot of the buildings do. And we have an acrobatics teacher from the Leningrad, originally Leningrad circus, Alexei Ivanov, who teaches acrobatics at the school. You can see how well the training is there. And last example I was mentioning, playing with objects as an element of clowning that is taught there. And this little last clip needs no explanation. It's interacting with an invented object. Mirabelle is the name of the student from France. And they always perform in front of an audience. That's important, that element. That you take the energy. The aim of these clown workshops and clowneria at the school are to enhance your creativity as a performer and also to gain courage in front of the audience. Courage is a very important ingredient, I think, generally in art, and we've had some of the masters of it talking today. I think the coraggio element. I'm thinking of Wittgenstein, Ludwig Wittgenstein, the philosopher, who said, genius is talent. Talent plus und Mut. Talent and courage. To do something, somebody was mentioning revolution, we need a revolution. Revolution needs courage, and you sometimes don't know where it's going to take you. So it's risk. And I'm thinking of Leo Bassi, whom we invited to a clown conference last year, which I organized on Monte Verita in Ascona. And Leo Bassi was talking about his ancestry as a clown, as a political clown today. He was talking about the court jester in the Middle Ages. And one of the famous court jesters was William Somers, who worked for Henry VIII. Now, Henry VIII, as you know, was a very cruel king, and he killed most of his advisors. He didn't kill his court jester. He killed his main advisor, who was Thomas Morus, known as the author of Utopia. He killed Thomas Moros, who was developing ideas that were going into the future, but he didn't kill Summers, who I think survived at the side of Henry VIII for more than 10 years. And I think it says something about the kind of courage, existential courage you need to have to in the face of political power, in the face of cruelty, to stand your ground and hold your jokes and don't compromise. So those are some of the things that I think are transported even in these little clips. Now when I came, I was involved in the master course of the Dimitri's School when it was affiliated to the University of Southern Switzerland. I'm going to take 10 more minutes, if I may, to talk a little bit about theory, which hasn't been mentioned too much. We've talked about the history of clowning, but I'm trying to move into a kind of philosophy or a theory of clowning. And I'd just like to give you some of the ideas we've been working on at the school, because when I came, I started a research project, a national research project from the Swiss National Research Council. My background is philosophy. I've also done books and so on, so I'm a university-trained person. But when I came to the clown school, I noticed there wasn't much in terms of trying to teach clowning on a theoretical level. So I started this research project, Clowning and Physical Theatre in Switzerland, and I built a little research team. And when you look at these things, the red and the white and the Monsieur Loyal, we had something you notice in clowning, or it became, because I came new to it really, to the field, I noticed that if you look at the triptych, for instance by Hieronymus Bosch, the Garden of Earthly Desires, you've got heaven, you've got the Garden of Earthly Desires, you've got life, you've got lust, you've got all that, and you've got hell. The third panel is hell. If you think, as Dimitri always insists, that the clown is about humanity, one element in clown was missing, and it was hell. Where was the dark side? David China this morning mentioned the dark side and the light side. You want to have both. I felt that the teaching of the clown was very much emphasizing the goodness of human beings, but not really taking into account that there is a very different side too. For me, there is something missing. And looking at the development of the clown, we were talking about it this morning, what is happening to the clown? Well, if you look at cinema, we note that the clown in the 60s, 70s, leaving the circus, is moving into Hollywood, and the comics of the 60s and 70s, American comics, full of clown figures, are really growing teeth of predators, and are turning up as monsters, killer clowns, evil clowns, clown maléfique, and Joker characters, Pennywise. All these popular characters have indeed suffered a perversion of the idea of clown. Now, if you talk to Dimitri about that, and I was talking to Oleg Popov about that, who now lives in Nuremberg, and he says, no, clown is about this goodness of human beings. And I said, well, sure, but look at what is coming from Hollywood. And look at what the new generation, how the new generation gets socialized, is who is going to the circus. Yes, there is Circus Knie still around in Switzerland. 3 weeks ago I was there. How many kids were there? Half empty. It was half empty. Okay, now these horror film genres with clowns with teeth and all this stuff coming in new, where do you associate that? This is something that is not born from the circus, it's not born from the theatre, but it's coming from cinema. And I think one needs to address these things. The clown's history has been moving from one genre, moving from different forms of art, literature, clowning in Shakespeare's time, into court jester, different social fields, moving from literature into theatre, into circus, into a music hall, all these things, and now there seems to be a new shift. So I was going to suggest, or I have suggested, that we have to add the black to the red and the white, to have a tricolore of the clown, to find the unity, find that the unity. If we don't find that the unity, we can't reformulate it. That would be one of the theses, and I think what Gardi mentioned this morning when she said, clown translates the horror into laughter. I think this kind of translation is not working anymore. The horror is shown as horror. Clown is no longer symbolizing the goodness of humanity, but it's actually symbolizing the inhumanity. And the question I'm asking myself is whether this new thing doesn't say something about our time, or what is going on in the 21st century. Now, I should just leave that open. We have these clown entrées. Another thing I noticed with these clown entrées, as you say, a clown entrée, you have in theatre, you have enter Hamlet and exit Hamlet after the scene. Between that, there is character development, there is dialogue. The character enters, these are stage directions. I think for me the difference between theatre and clown is that clown enters and nothing, we don't know what's going to happen. There's no dialogue, there is no plot. Afterwards, you have to go again. The moment you enter, you have to leave again because other people want to do their number. So clown is about turning up, and actually the moment he turns up, you have to go again. So what do? You invent false exits, extended exits, like in music, false chords. That you hear is still something opening, you have to finish it, you have to find a closure. So clown comes, enters, and you do something, and you entertain, but actually you're already going. It's a little bit of metaphor of life. We come, we go, you have to go, immediately you have to go, and you pass your time as best as possible. To entertain, to give a smile, to using Django Edwards' words from just before. Entertain, give, and take. And this entrée again seems to be just one half of something that has to be completed before we can talk about a basis to reflect on what clown is and what clown could be in the future, in a completely different social environment, and also environment of the different forms of art. For me, the starting point, I'm just going to take 5 more minutes if I may. The starting point to reflect on clown was 3 premises that I noticed could be used as general terms to start working on something more on a philosophical plane. For me, one basic point has been mentioned umpteen times, I think it's beyond dispute, is the element of playing. And rules come into play. As soon as you start talking about plays, you start talking about rules. As soon as you start talking about rules, you start talking about who is making the rules, transgressing rules, playing with limitations. So one element for me, clown, is play related. It's like a Spieltheorie. It's actually a theory of game, if you like. Another element, and again that's coming often because Django Edwards was he's switching between fool, academy of fool, academy of clown. Relationship of fool and clown historically is such that in different languages you can more or less create a family. The word family also came up. That you can use clown as a generic term, certainly in Elizabethan English. Clown is a generic term, meaning also fool and court jester, various forms of creating laughter and being ridiculed. So laughter comes into that. So for me, the generic term is important. That clown comprises different forms of comic characters. The third element is masquerade. There is a theory that mascara, the mask, the makeup, is connected to the Arabic word maskhara, and there is a theory there. This is very difficult, speculative etymology, because there are no clear sources. What we've got is the word maskhara, and then maskhara in Arabic was connected to a tradition of court jesters in ancient Egypt. We're talking 10th century. Maskhara was the person who made fun of other people. So the word is both a noun and a verb. It's making fun. It's the bouffon in le coq. It's the laughter of the clown about the audience. It's not being ridiculed. And that element, that the clown takes back the laughter. I've been ridiculed for centuries. Now I'm going to take the laughter, I'm going to throw it back at the audience, and the grin changes. It's not a human laughter. It's the laughter of the superior guy is laughing at the victim. There is that element of returning. In German you say, wer zuletzt lacht, lacht am besten. The person who laughs last has the best laugh. I don't know whether it exists in Russian, that saying. So we have these 3 elements, and another element, and I'm going into a kind of generalization, is an element that came up in Leo Bassi's talk when he said, he used the word contradiction, to talk against. He said he really felt proud when he realized that the clown has an energy going against an authority. And the word contradiction is interesting because you talk against, but you're also contradictory in yourself. The word contradiction translated into Greek is paradoxa, talk against the opinion of the others. Orthodoxa and paradoxa. For me, clown is paradox in the sense of the philosophical term paradox. You talk against the opinion of the others to expose the question of opinion. It is your opinion, I have a different opinion. Protestants were paradoxa, taking your opinion, orthodoxa, the right opinion, against, I'm putting it against you. And in doing that, I'm creating the logical figure of paradox, meaning the unity of opposites. Unification of opposites. For me, clown is a paradoxical figure. Unification of opposites. Now, I don't even have to prove that. I can just quote, for instance, David Scheinringer. You were mentioning the ecstasy and the agony. You were mentioning the black and the white and the darkness. These are two elements, but I would say these elements have, they're both there. They're both contained in the element of in the notion of clown. It's not just it's this and that. It's this and that at the same time. Now let me show you what I mean. And I've found in my work to date 7 forms of playing out these paradoxes. And I've given them names. So these paradoxes have seven games. It's like a game theory of the clown. And I just like to mention these games. There's not enough time to go into the depth, but very, very briefly, 7 ideas of the paradox of the clown. The first idea is something that was mentioned again only half an hour ago: transgression, borderline. You have a line between the audience and the performer. And the clown, in Shakespearean theatre, the clown is the character who's allowed to trespass this thing and start engaging in the audience. The only guy who's allowed to do that. Break the illusion. There was a kind of idea of illusion. At any rate, the clown is operating on the distinction between that side and this side. And he's the guy who can go over the line. Django has just said and I call it borderliner. And the game I would call border game. I'm translating from German, that's how I think. So some of these terms are slightly unstable. So border game meaning that the clown connects this side of the argument and the other side at the same time. He doesn't stay fit. He's playing with a liminal space, liminality. He's playing with the limes, the Latin for the line between your territory and my territory. Second idea, I pick from 2 quotes Dimitri's is always mentioning. He says, "Seid wie die Kinder." Be like, it's a quote from the Bible. Be like children. Be like children in the Bible. And Popov, in his talk, was always saying you have to keep the soul of your childhood in your adult body. You have to be in connection. You have to stay in contact with your childhood. So for me, the next idea there is generation game. The combination of an adult playing a child, playing a baby. Clowns are adults going into baby mode, child mode. It's generation game. It's playing with the fact there is a distinction, but I can connect it. And I'm just going to race through these, if that's okay. Is that pace okay? It's too fast? The third would be, I think, quite self-evident. If you look at some of the work the students do in Dimitri's school, it's about training the body. It's about training the body, being able to do a tripping movement, but don't hurt yourself. Theatre is about an action that has no consequences for the actors. Circus, as I learned it when I was a boy, I went to Circus Knie, you saw the acrobats up in the tent, and there were no nets. I can't remember having nets, there were lions. There were no nets. So what you got was the trapeze artist and the clown. The consequence of if you fall down there is that you might be dead. The consequence for a clown if he trips and falls on his nose and has a red nose is possibly, yes, a red nose, but he's not allowed to get hurt. To avoid any kind of serious accident, you've got to be fit, you've got to be trained. What you've got here is a paradox. You have to demonstrate your inability to walk. You demonstrate the fall. It's a deliberate fall. It's a demonstration, even in the Brechtian sense, of epic movement, distancing of your own movement. So I would call that the Körperspiel, the body game. And the next maybe could be seen in Bhutto this afternoon, the element of playing with an ambiguity of sexuality, of gender. Often, even in the costumes of white and red clown, the white clown is a somewhat androgynous costume, and you're playing with role models, you're playing with gender expectation. So I would say that is, for me, a very important element in clowning. Even you had it before, I don't know, it was Django dressing up as woman. That's such a kind of classic number, Charlie Riddle. So it's this element of what determines sexual behavior and engendered behavior, both in dressing and in body movement, body language. Next, another thing that distinguishes, in my opinion, theatre and clowning, and this is the last of three, and that is laughter and crying have been associated in theatre history with tragedy and comedy. Tragedy came first, and the ecstasy, agony, quote, relationship is very interesting because of the satire play related to tragedy, the satire play relating to the ritual of Dionysus, which was ecstasis, to get out of your body. Ecstasis, and the ecstasy was transformed and taken into the tragedy to do this kind of catharsis, which was throwing it at the audience. So my ecstasy as a performer becomes your catharsis later, once it's established as tragedy. For me, the point here is that laughter and crying, we had it, Leo Bassi was crying suddenly. First he was laughing, then in a moment he was crying, the emotions came up, he addressed his emotions, and we had laughter again. I think the difference for me between the crying and the laughing in tragedy and in theatre is that in clowning, laughter and crying are physiological movements. It's a pneumatic movement. When I laugh, I push out the air, and when I cry, I'm drawing it in. I can do Indian actors who are in folk. We had an Indian actor coming to Dimitri's school, and he showed us how you can go into a loop between crying and laughing. You can do a loop simply by body control. So it's not about emotions, it's about a physiological response. And as for me, clown is not psychological, it's about reflecting on certain psychological behavior of human beings. It's always meta, it's a metaphor. I'm not contradicting what you said about the psychological, David Scheiner, but I think there is a difference there between a theatrical psychology and the clown psychology. The next and last is language, relationship of clown and language. And I see another paradox operating there, that either you can control language, you're a master of language like a court jester who plays with words, juggles and creates puns, or you are like Grock, you show the inability to control language. Language is controlling you, to use a Wittgensteinian idea that language is controlling our brain and controlling the way we actually operate. So language is the master of our performance. But there situation, and that is endlessly repetitive. So you have this sense of infantile speech, aphasia, or a complete mastery of language, and there I see the paradox of a language game. In the sense of in the Romance languages, the word lingue is both tongue and language. And again, with tongue, you're going to a physiological state of clown. You can use your tongue. We had it before, somebody was doing with the lips. And I think that's absolutely relevant to clowning because it's control over lip movement, and again, you're in body control. And again, you're in Dimitri's school. Because it's all about learning to use your body both also as an instrument to express, of course, as a language. So that, for me, is the language game. And finally, on the highest plane of these paradoxes, I see something operating which maybe, as an example, in The Great Dictator, Charlie Chaplin plays both dictator Engl, and he also plays the Jewish hairdresser. Both have the little moustache. He's playing the bad side and the good side together. And I think this is another paradox, that clown embraces both the black and the white, and the goodness and the badness, but it's not engaging in the morality. Again, it's playing with the notion of morality. So for me, it's a morality play, not in the medieval sense of morality play, but in a modern clownesque sense of morality play. Nietzsche would say, der Clown ist eine Figur im außermoralischen Sinne. He's not in a moral argument, he's outside the moral argument, but he's questioning human morality. By, for instance, this film by Charlie Chaplin. So, just to close in one sentence, logical contradictions. If you say, it is this and it is that at the same time, you've got a logical contradiction, you've got a paradox. Contradictio in adjecto, whatever. Oxymoron, on the level of a logical argument, you've got a paradox. I believe that these logical oppositions are leveled out, they're unified by the activity of clowning, and the logic of the clown takes over. The logic of the clown being the playing with paradoxes, and also being the idea that as a human being, you've got to be in the position to deal with the opposite of maybe what you've just said and what you're doing, but to understand the human being as a paradoxical being. So the unifying force there is play, laughter, play. That's for me the unifying force. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much.
А можно вопрос задать?
Если можно,
Один маленький.
просто мы должны в 6 часов уйти, а еще очень, я думаю, всем интересно послушать про школу Славы Полунина, просто он может только сегодня и до 6 часов. Предлагаю вопросы перенести на следующую. Спасибо.
By the way, anybody interested in School, please help yourselves to the I'm going to leave them here.